13 minutes now to 8 here on Daybreak. For the last 8 years, Yves La Liberté, his companion Marie-France, and their daughter Karine have been sailing around the world in their 40-foot yacht. Recently, they were shipwrecked off the Cape of Good Hope, South Africa. With me in studio today, he managed to make it back to Montreal, is Yves La Liberté to tell us about that adventure. Good morning, Mr. La Liberté.
Good morning.
First of all, let's get this clear. This was your home, right? This boat was your entire being. That's where you lived.
Yeah, and that was our home, and that was all we had in the world. I mean, there was nothing else. We had everything in it, full equipped, nearly full equipped, and that was our place and nothing else.
But to sail around the Cape of Good Hope, I think all of us sort of know that you got to be a pretty good sailor to do that. You don't head around the Cape of Good Hope unless you've some pretty serious experience.
Well, I didn't prove that. That's one fact. But Cape of Good Hope, I don't want to scare any other sailor who plan to go around there. You got to be very vigilant. But Cape of Good Hope is not as bad as Cape Horn. But you got to be. You don't have to do what I did, falling asleep. Well, when you fall asleep, there's nothing. The boat goes on his own, and there's nothing else he can do on his own.
I guess no matter what you're driving or where, that's a problem. But what happened here? How did you fall asleep?
Well, it was, first of all, we had an open window for, let's say, weather window to get to the closest port, which was East London. Because on that area, there's no place where we can shelter if a southwest wind come in. So we decided to go because the window was open. We had 4 days to go, according to the weather forecast. And the weather forecast astrology is better than meteorology, I think, because weather forecast is kind of the divination. You never know what you're gonna get. And finally, we had that southwest wind who came 55 knots wind right in our nose. So we couldn't stay in the current because there's some kind of up to 9-10 knots of current in that area. And when the wind blows against the current, there's some freak wave, giant wave who can build up, which can reach up to 60 feet. So
now, you were in those waves at that point, were you? Or you had to get out of them. That's why you were out of the current.
That's it. That's exactly it. I had to get out of it because I didn't want to see 60 feet waves, you know.
Okay, but you were still in some pretty heavy seas at that point.
Yeah, we had something like 8-9 meters of sea, so we had to go and there was no way we could go and anchor and get a shelter somewhere. So we get closer to land, like they say in every book, even for cargo. The cargo do the same thing as the yachts, and
you would have been okay because I mean everything was under control, but it went on so long.
Yeah, it went on so long, and even if we're sailing for 8 years, we're not seasick proof, you know. So my wife and my daughter were seasick, and when you travel with people you love, it's very hard when you see your wife seasick to tell her. That was one of my mistakes. I mean, to tell your wife to say, "Hey, get a bucket and go on deck and let me sleep for an hour." So I took it all on my shoulder, and I couldn't resist. After 48 hours, I fell asleep for.
You were up for 48 hours straight.
Yeah.
Sailing that boat.
Yeah.
You fall asleep.
Yeah.
What happened? Oh, I guess you wake up, and what do you see when you wake up?
But I was so sure because the last point, my last GPS, it's global
that's satellite system that tells you where you are.
I had two, you know, to be sure where I was, and I was 12 miles from land. So I said, and I was tacking. Tacking is going against the wind on each side. I was sure that I had 2.5 hours. I said, well, I'm going to just close my eyes 15 minutes because there's an area who's got lots of cargo. And I was scared of cargo more than the land. And I just crossed a cargo. I took the binoculars and I look around and said, well, I'm sure I got 15 minutes. Cargo don't go out that fast. And I'm just going to close my eyes 15 minutes. And, well, I fell asleep.
And what happened to the boat?
Well, there was a big bang. Everything started to flow from one side to the other of the yacht, and I was sure that we got hit by a cargo. I was so sure I was far away, but everything started to flow around, and my wife come up on deck, and we tried to get her out the reef, but the sea had built up, and the wave on land were too big, and we just get pushed on another reef. And
so you're on the reef, you're on the rocks, and how far from shore are you at this point?
Well, something like the edge of the shore maybe something like 100 meters.
So you decide to bail out?
I would call a Mayday, and there was only cargo in the area because the yacht was still and very solid. If there was, let's say, a rescue around, but it's in the middle of nowhere, eh? They call it the Wild Coast. That was in the middle of nowhere, so there was no rescue boat to come and could come and just tow us out, because the ship would be pucked all over, but I mean, it was still floating.
So you got
Could
off.
float.
So I mean, so you decided to get out of it, or I mean, what?
Yeah, but first we saw that there was some people living around, because 1 mile north or 1 mile south there wouldn't be nobody there to help us. So we see that there was people. When we start to see that the cars starting to show lights at us. So we said, well, at least we end up where is somebody's.
So you got off the boat, and the boat actually goes up in flames.
Well, after 2 hours, the boat goes out in flame.
So the boat was gone.
Yeah, everything melt.
Done. It's over.
Yeah.
So much for La Belle Lurette.
Yeah.
But you'd managed to fall into a group of people who turned out to be pretty nice to you and your family.
I don't think that there's no qualification for those people. I mean, there's nothing we could ask. They were always ahead of us. I mean, the guy the first morning, he started to give us clothes and what do you need? When do you need? And that guy, Desmond Manti, nobody knows him, but I do it. I think for me, it's one of my friends, because this guy was so good to us. I mean, he drive for 3.5 hours in dirt road just to go and shop for us, you know.
I'm speaking with Yves La Liberté, and he was the captain, the skipper of a boat, 40-foot yacht called La Belle Lurette, which was home to him and his wife and his daughter, and they ended up shipwrecked off the coast of South Africa. Now, we tried to phone this little community, Coramouth, I think that's what it was called. Yesterday morning, we found out there was only one telephone we could phone to directly. This is a small place. We never got through. But you say that, was it like the whole village that kind of decided that they were going to help you out?
Well, the village is about an hour and a half driving in dirt road. I mean, the guys over there, they all have 4x4s. I mean, there's nothing around there. The only telephone is the Cobin. It's a little hotel in there. And
I guess that's what we were trying to phone yesterday.
Yeah, and even then, it's a radio phone. And if you could get a hold of them, it's only 3 minutes talking, and after it cuts by itself. So it was very hard to communicate out of that area.
But so there you are. How long were you in that village?
We were in there exactly 3 weeks.
Now you've got nothing, right? At this point, everything you had was on that boat.
Yeah, well, we tried to dig in, you know, but all we found was a few knives and forks, and all the rest had burned out.
So, like, who was putting you up? Were you staying in someone's house?
Yeah, the guy I named Desmonti. He just say, you can stay here as long as you want. There's no rush to go back. You should live in this country. And they were so great people.
But you decide you need to come back to Montreal. But there again, I mean, everything was on that boat. Your money's all tied up in that boat. How did you, I mean, because it cost money to fly back from South Africa.
Well, the people of South Africa, they get together. Even the chief, you know, the black people of South Africa, they are very poor. And the chief came to that hotel and managed to give us 35 rand, which is like $10.
But was a lot for them.
It was a lot for them. I mean, you can live a month out of that.
So people were gathering up money and giving you money, and they gathered up enough for you to fly home.
Not exactly. They got the good part of it, because there was no help I could get from Canadian government, but we had saved few things from the yacht also. I mean, when the mast broke off, there's some winches, and that guy from the owner, not the owner, the manager of the Coben Hotel, he just managed to call the scrapyard in East London, and he bought from me, traveling because it's 4 hours to go to East London. He bought all the aluminum, all the stainless steel, and he also bought the lead in the keel. And he paid me cash for that, which I lost over $100,000, and he gave me $1,000 for it. So that was one plane ticket, more or less.
Well, still, it's $1,000 that I guess was welcome, even if it was kind of
yes,
sad.
Because there was no other way we could get out of South Africa. Because the East Cape government, the South African government, managed to get hold of us, and they say, it's written in their newspaper that they were willing to help us. They were willing to try to shelter us for a time that we could manage, but the Canadian government, they never do anything for us.
Did you speak with them? I mean, what did they say? Sorry, your accident, your problem?
Well, maybe that was what they were thinking, but they didn't say it that way. You know, it took them about 2 weeks before they can get a hold of us, because they didn't know where we were. But it's funny that there was a French-Canadian guy in Durban who could get a hold of us before the Canadian government.
he was working harder at it.
Yeah.
Okay, so everything is gone. You've made it back to Montreal. Even had to sell your winches off your boat.
Oh, yeah.
Are you going to go back to sea?
Of course. If my wife is willing for.
Well, now there's the question. Are they, I mean, both your wife and your daughter, are they willing to go back to sea?
Well, when we were in South Africa, my wife didn't want to know anything about it. But since 2 days, going back in a country which has changed a lot in 8 years, and it's cold and she don't like cold weather, I think I got good points. But it's not. I didn't win the battle yet because starting at 40 years old with nothing, only with experience, well, it's going to be very hard.
But you're obviously not a rich man. So
I'm a very poor man.
How are you going to afford a boat like that? I mean, $100,000 boat, as you just mentioned.
Well, I got to start a new life. Sometimes, well, maybe you're going to think I'm too optimistic, but every people say, well, I wish I could start my life again, and I wouldn't do this, I wouldn't do that, I would do this instead. Well, me, I got no choice. I got to start my life again.
But you're going to do the same thing again. You're going to go back onto the ocean.
Yeah, but I won't run aground that time.
You'll make your wife come up on deck and get a nap.
Yeah, well, I will have a radar. That was the only equipment we didn't have was a radar, and that radar would save my yacht, but...
Mr. La Liberté, thanks for telling us this story, and best of luck. I don't think you're too optimistic. I think it's kind of inspirational, actually.
Well, I have no choice.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yves La Liberté, you just heard his story, a Montrealer, and he's going to head out back to sea.